So this Nintendo Switch Online situation just keeps getting more interesting, especially if you are an expansion pack member, because you're probably well aware that in the month of October, we have already seen one round of game updates in the form of GBA, with two different F-Zero games added in with GP and Climax was a first time release outside of Japan, so that was a big win, and normally that's where game updates would stop for the expansion pack. However, we are in that month that Nintendo launched the service originally in 2021. On October 25th to be exact. And one thing that Nintendo is well aware of is that this service is an annual subscription, which means that people that signed up at the launch of the service, their renewal date comes up around this time of year, specifically on the 25th. So what is Nintendo doing? Well, they're doing a playtest program, which is the big mystery project. They've never done this in Nintendo Switch Online history. We know we're approaching the end of the Nintendo Switch life cycle, and they're coming out and saying we need 10,000 plus players to essentially test out a new Switch Online feature that they're not disclosing what it is. And then while all of that is going on, there's an interesting tease that we're going to get into in this video that they emailed out as kind of a promotion thing to basically stay subscribed for expansion pack, because apparently there are big surprises around the corner in the upcoming year. And out of left field late last night, they announced that none other than Banjo-Tooie is hitting the service on October 25th, a massive addition, a rare developed title, which they have some of the best N64 games. I still really want DK64 and Diddy Kong Racing and Conker's Bad Fur Days, but they spaced the rare titles out, and honestly, this was one of the big missing ones for me from the N64 era, so that's going to be an exciting addition, and it's no coincidence that it is happening on October 25th, just 2 days after the playtest launches. And we will also find out more information supposedly from Nintendo, maybe around what this playtest will feature on the 20th this month. And there's also a lot of interesting reports and information popping up online, really pointing it in the direction of the possibility for a GameCube edition. But we're going to get on the same page with all of the new Nintendo Switch Online updates and where you should be setting your expectations for some of the future updates that we don't even know what they are yet. So before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first start off by highlighting the official announcement from Nintendo that yes, indeed, on October 25th, Banjo-Tooie is headed to the expansion pack tier. As you can see, the following post from Nintendo of America, which reads, "The bear and bird are back. Banjo-Tooie is coming to Nintendo Switch for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members on 10/25. Are you ready?" And of course, this is a classic 3D platformer. Really, there was those peak 3D experiences back in the N64 era with like Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and then ultimately Banjo-Tooie, and you could even throw DK64 into that conversation. But what's really cool about Banjo-Tooie, and I don't believe on NSO or the original release for Banjo-Kazooie, there wasn't widescreen support in the first one, right? But it was built into the second one, and if you were playing on original N64 hardware, chances are if you were playing it around the launch time, you may or may not have had a widescreen TV, because they were not the standard viewing format by any stretch of the imagination. But since that game was available in widescreen, we are actually getting this release with widescreen support, which is absolutely fantastic to see. Just like we saw with GoldenEye and some other rare games that do support that in the settings, you will have to toggle it on, but I'm very happy that this is going to be a complete 16:9 experience. When the textures are up-resed into HD how they are, they honestly look great. The games look and play fantastic, and it just adds that modern quality of life enhancement of having no bars on each side of the screen. And honestly, you know, while we're talking about features and wish lists for Nintendo Switch Online, I just wish that that was an option, because you can enable that on almost any game fairly easily through emulation. And I do wish that Nintendo was putting in just the slightest bit more work to make a widescreen resolution available for all of their NSO games. It's obviously not ideal if it was just some kind of stretch image option, but if they just truly do it as a native widescreen support and bake that in, I think that would be a huge addition. Maybe one day, like on their next gen console, they would look into doing that and making it retroactive for all of the games that they've already added to the Switch Online service, because that is one benefit when you are paying for a subscription. You can sometimes get new features added in, and they may just do it at an across the board level where it impacts all the games that were already added into the service. So that's kind of on the hope and wish list side of things. But when we talk about everything that's going on with the expansion pack right now, I would like to point out that it is very uncharacteristic, and I honestly can't necessarily think of a time that we've seen in the same month 2 expansion pack tier updates. It's always alternated between something like Game Boy Advance for the new update for the month or an N64 game, but not both. Now, we are in renewal month, so this may not be a mainstay strategy for Nintendo, and in fact, I would expect it not to be because they've gotten very sporadic with updates. But one thing you might remember in some of the Nintendo Switch Online videos I've kept up with here on the channel as we get new updates, I mentioned that during the entire first half of 2024, we really saw them sticking to a pretty consistent schedule of 1 base tier update and 1 expansion pack tier update per month in a calendar month perspective. One of them might have happened at the beginning of the month, one of them more towards the middle or the end, but they were basically updating each tier of the service once per month, which I was very happy with that update cadence. They kind of fell off over the summertime past that June direct, and this is the first time since then we've seen them go with 2 updates, even though they're on the same tier in the same calendar month, and it is a rarity that it's the expansion pack tier, and Nintendo knows what they're doing. It's no mistake that it's happening on the same month that a lot of annual renewals are coming up, and that's where the idea of what could this playtest be tied to, and just how big of a program is this, and what is Nintendo teasing for the expansion pack tier to come, because we do know that that playtest is exclusively for expansion pack tier members, which would lead you to believe whatever the feature is will be locked behind the expansion pack tier. There's a lot of reasons it might be GameCube. There's also some that might suggest it's not, but one thing that Nintendo is doing themselves is essentially teasing this service in a way that is trying to get people excited for staying a member in the future. As you have the following promotional email they were sending out to a bunch of different expansion pack users. I got this myself and I saw people posting it all over social media. It says, "Cheers to 3 years. We hope you've had a chance to enjoy revisiting or discovering classic games in the Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, and Sega Genesis libraries. Oh, and doing more in the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Splatoon 2 games with access to their paid DLC included. What excitement will next year bring for Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack members? Stay tuned to find out." And while they're not name dropping or teasing any specific feature, it is just a interesting promotional email to basically say, hey, we're not done updating this service. There's going to be some big things you don't know about headed to the expansion pack tier next year. And obviously we know to expect Nintendo will be launching their next gen hardware no later than the end of next year. I'm still thinking the reveal happens late this month and we get something like an early March/April time window for the launch of their next gen hardware. I think they want to kick off the service in a big way with some kind of Nintendo Switch Online 2.0 revamp and overhaul, but they're going to largely keep everything that we have right now rolling forward to the next generation of the service. We've even seen that historic slide that Nintendo has said that Nintendo account value added services, aka a service like Nintendo Switch Online fits that description perfectly, will be rolling forward to their next generation. They're not hitting the reset button on the Nintendo account program this time like they have in the past with their previous online logins and things like that. You had to re-register, re-sign up. All of that stuff is staying. So the service will largely just all carry over, but I think they're going to want to have 1 or 2 killer app features that are exclusive to the next gen hardware. And that's where the playtest program really comes into play, because is this some kind of test or a big feature that will be supported for the expansion pack tier entirely on Switch 1? Are we getting something like GameCube games on Switch 1, but they will only be available via streaming and they will be able to be natively played on the next gen hardware? I actually don't think that that's the case anymore, because this file download is 2.2 gigabytes, which leads you to believe if it's not one game, it's multiple games from the GameCube library that we can test out, maybe like 2 to 4, somewhere in that range. And I actually do think that if GameCube is what this playtest is, that it will just be supported on the current family of Nintendo Switch systems, but this is a playtest program, not the launch of the actual official feature, so it's very possible that we don't see this feature officially launch until something like the February Direct next year, and that's whenever said feature will be fully implemented. There's also some speculation that maybe this is some kind of upgraded netcode. I don't know that Nintendo would market that as a new expansion pack tier feature, but there is a world of possibility where they're also just kind of testing on the back end how you can play from the Switch 1 consoles that we have today to the Switch 2 via backwards compatibility, and maybe Nintendo's just testing some of that stuff on their end. It's even the possibility that it's just some brand new piece of software that's exclusive to the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, and it's some kind of big big online multiplayer game. Maybe it's the return of Miiverse, but with an entire story mode to go through, or kind of an MMO setting, and Nintendo's marketing that as one of their expansion pack tier features. I don't necessarily expect that, and the reason I'm still kind of leaning more in the mindset of GameCube just a little bit more than anything else is there's just a lot of interesting weird things that have been going on with GameCube at the same time that this playtest information is popping up online, such as we know Nintendo is mass manufacturing what appears to be a GameCube controller, most likely for the NSO service. It's a wireless game controller that has components specifically tied to a GameCube controller, and while it could be Nintendo just launching a retro controller first party themselves in-house, what do we see them do every time there's a major system addition to Nintendo Switch Online? We see them actually release that home console controller as an optional purchase that you can own as a Nintendo Switch Online member. I think that that's what that would most likely be for the GameCube. We also had that 19.0.0 update go live, and interestingly, a bunch of people started to report issues with their wired Nintendo GameCube controllers via the adapter for Smash Bros and things, like they just weren't working correctly after that update. Now maybe that's just a one-off not related thing, but it is interesting timing that specifically GameCube controllers are the only ones having issues after a brand new update where the entire system component was rebuilt for that 19.0.0 system firmware upgrade. So the good thing is with all of this, there's a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to for Nintendo Switch Online. We're supposed to hear more about the playtest on the 20th, and that will of course launch on the 23rd. So there's going to be a lot more stuff to come, but Banjo-Tooie is officially headed to the service as of the 25th. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, what you hope we see Nintendo do with the future of the service, and what you personally believe the playtest program is, as well as if you're excited for Banjo-Tooie like I am, but do you want to see them essentially go in the direction of something like a more fleshed out online overall experience, like where you can be in a party with your different friends and kind of have a group of players all together. You can send messages and voice chat and invite them straight into games from any part of the menu on the Nintendo Switch. Do you think they would implement something like that drastic this late into the Switch's life cycle, or do you think this is likely something like GameCube games or a one-off piece of software that will just be exclusive to the expansion pack tier and Nintendo needs to test it out ahead of time? And if you are somebody who has your expansion pack tier coming up for expiration on the 25th, has these couple last updates like the F-Zero updates for the Game Boy Advance, and now the announcement that Banjo-Tooie is hitting the service on the 25th, is that convincing you to stay, or do you need to see more from Nintendo to not let that subscription to the expansion pack expire if that is your situation? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.